Chairman. At least one of our witnesses today is going to speak of the importance of intelligence and the inadequacy of our intelligence on bioterrorism. And this is an issue that Chairman Sherman and I were very involved in at the time. But in 2007, the intelligence community produced a national intelligence estimate, which you were certainly involved with. You were the National Intelligence Officer for Nonproliferation. That NIE concluded with high confidence that Iran had halted its effort to develop nuclear weapons in 2003, and it assessed with moderate confidence that Iran had not restarted this program. In a report last month, the IAEA recited a number of concerns about military-related nuclear activity in Iran and asserted that these activities seem to have continued beyond 2004. Now, at the time the NIE was released, the Chairman and I denounced it as naive and harmful. And you were centrally involved in that. I remember at the press hearing with Chairman Brad Sherman holding up the Time magazine cover that exonerated the Iranians, exonerated them on the basis of your assessment, which turned out to be wrong. My question is, what went wrong? Is now the time maybe to revisit the issues addressed in the NIE? I don't think the stakes could be any higher. Let me ask you that question.
Well, thank you, Congressman. I guess the starting point on that is, of course, that's not the business I'm in anymore. But I think the fair way to answer that question is the intelligence community right now is preparing a follow-on national intelligence estimate on that subject. And I think the thing to do is to wait for that to come out and see the extent to which that assessment differs from the one in the 2007 NIE. And I would suggest that that should probably be the basis of deciding what was right and what was wrong.
Well, I think the covert illegal enrichment facility at a military base outside Guam, that was disclosed last fall to all the world. So I think the case is pretty clear. Surely you agree that something went wrong in your assessment?
Well, one thing that is inherent is, by definition, information comes in after you publish. The intelligence business is one of working with the information you happen to have at hand at any particular time, comparing it to the old information and trying to then project both what is actually going on, since objective reality is difficult to determine, and what you think is likely to happen in the future. And by definition, new information keeps coming in. It doesn't respect publication dates of NIEs. And basically, we're in the intelligence community, you're in the business of trying to predict the outcome of a movie that you only get to see glimpses of. You don't know how long the movie was going on before you started glimpsing. You don't know how long the movie's going to be going on. And half of your glimpses actually come from other people's glimpses of the movie. And so you have to sort of put all that together and put together a picture. I think that NIE was very clear and very responsible in its use of so-called intelligence tradecraft, confidence levels, descriptions of alternative scenarios. In fact, I think there were 8 alternative scenarios beyond the mainline estimate that were included in that assessment. There was a very extensive discussion of what if we're wrong, how could we be wrong. So I think that
I think part of your argument basically was the burden of proof to determine proliferation activities should be as high as in the average U.S. courtroom. At least that's the way that I recall sort of your assessment of the situation. And as one press report said afterwards, there was never a sanction that Van Diepen liked. Never, said one official. It was a point of religion for him. He thought anything we did outside of teacup diplomacy was counterproductive and wrong. There are decisions we're going to make in terms of sanctions on the basis of assessments which you helped make that frankly turned out to be wrong. And I'd like to just add a couple of other concerns I have. I brought up Russia. The WMD Commission noted that over the last several years, Russia has been less and less interested in cooperating with U.S. biological threat reduction programs that had some success in redirecting former Soviet bioweapons scientists to peaceful activities. The Commission expressed concern that, quote, the large cadre of former bioweapons scientists remains a global proliferation concern. You barely mentioned Russia in your testimony, and I was going to ask you, can you explain the Russian position and the U.S. response, and is there still a role for these programs?
Thank you, Congressman. First of all, and I don't think I can let go the first part of what you had to say, and frankly, those quotes against me are utter nonsense. And I, in fact, have been involved in sanctioning more entities and more countries for more acts of proliferation than any human being on the planet. So I'm quite comfortable with
well, the bottom line is, for the chairman and me, who were involved on the other side of the table from you in your last position, there was a very, very different conclusion about what was going on in Iran and what we should do about it. So we just disagreed at the time. I think that all that's in the papers subsequently bear out the chairman and my observations on this. But you've got your opinion, I've got mine. But let's go to the question on Russia and the role of these programs.
Very happy to do that. But anyway, yes. Clearly, there's still an issue. You know, there's a fair amount of, substantial amount of biological weapons applicable materials, equipment, and expertise in Russia. And you, in your opening statement, mentioned some examples of that being the case. And one of the longstanding objectives of our various engagement programs, including the Science Centers program, the BEP, and others, has been to work with the Russians to try and put in place better barriers to make sure that that expertise does not go to BW programs in other countries or to BW terrorism. Russia now, however, is different than the Russia we dealt with in the early 90s in the sense that it is much more economically viable than was the case before. It is much more nationalist and resurgent than it was before. And, you know, frankly, the Russians are less interested in looking like they are supplicants and recipients of aid than looking like they are partners. And they are less interested in looking like they are a potential source of proliferation than they are looking like they're partners. And so the challenge that we face in continuing to pursue these programs in Russia, which we are doing, and which we think we still need to do, because again, that repository of expertise is unquestionably there, is to try and work within the parameters set by the current Russian government and the current situation within Russia to continue to try to make progress.
Let me ask you one last question. Why is that bipartisan panel that gave an F grade, that was a bipartisan panel of 9 experts, why were they wrong, the WMD Commission in January that gave you that grade? What grade would you give yourself, I would ask?
Well, as I recall, the F grade mostly focused on the domestic side of things, which of course the State Department doesn't have responsibility for. As the chairman noted in his opening statement, the State Department's end of this actually got relatively high grades. I guess what I would say is that it should be less of an issue of grades than to realize that this is an extremely daunting and challenging problem. The fact is that since bioterrorism ranges from everything from a disgruntled individual putting salmonella in a salad bar all the way up to all-out strategic level attack by another country using ICBMs filled with genetically engineered pathogens, there are a lot of potential opportunities for biological attack against the United States. And because we are a sophisticated, interdependent with other countries' society, there are a lot of vulnerabilities that we have. And so given all those opportunities for potential threat, given all the vulnerabilities that we have, it's a very daunting task to try and totally protect ourselves against every aspect of such a threat.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Before I